Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Journeys to Belonging. Today on my podcast, I have someone that I've been following for a while on social media. And also, we have, let's sort of like 6 degrees of separation because we have a lot of common PLN people. And my guest is Kellie Bahri. And I'm really excited to have her with me here today because her tweets, the things she talks about, what she stands for is all about student agency and belonging. So Kellie, welcome to my podcast today.
Eileen, I am so grateful that you asked me to be on your show. I love your show for one thing, but I love your story. As I was reading like your blogs and your own personal journey and your story and your sense of belonging from one country to the other and how you've tied the both of them in together. I just feel like I just like read your story as a wonderful book. So when you asked me to be on your show today, honestly, I was over the moon excited to be here.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love that, especially coming from you, because as I read your bio, people will see what an amazing educator you and person you are. So Kellie is an elementary teacher with a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and educational leadership. She is passionate about supporting learning through establishing strong connections and creating learning spaces that promote equity and inclusion. She's an instructional strategist, serves on the instructional leadership and school improvement team, is a culturally responsive teacher, and a sustainable development goals lead educator. In March, I'm so excited about this news. Kellie's going to release her first book, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about, from her children's book series with Codebreaker at EDU Publishing. And she encourages everybody to connect with her on Twitter. And so we'll talk about that at the end. I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes so that we can connect with Kellie. So that's your bio. But you're so much more than that. And I understand you've also started, I think you've started on your doctorate. Is that correct?
I am actually, yes, I have started, but I've taken some time off. Only this year has just been kind of with all of us. I really needed to focus. I have 4 children, 2 of which are not home living here. They're adults, and the other 2 are here. So between teaching my own classroom and supporting them, I just really needed to just step back and make some good choices for my family. So hopefully that'll pick up again.
Yes. And you know what's really important to be able to focus? It took me 8 years to get mine. And one of those years was actually a year I took off because my mom had quadruple bypass surgery and terrible complications afterwards. And so instead of doing some of my coursework, I decided to spend time with her and make sure that she was going to be okay. And then it was my daughter's senior year. And, you know, like you said, our family come first. So, and then it was time for me to be able to finish up. So I hope you get back to it because I know you're so passionate about it. I'm sure you already have something in mind. And besides, you have the book coming out, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So Kellie, go ahead.
And it is something, and I was just going to say, you know, and for me, getting that PhD is just kind of almost like a lifelong dream versus getting it and using it right now. I'm really, really not only comfortable, but I am passionately in love being in the classroom. And so when you think about, honestly, anybody that's gotten a PhD realizes the cost of that.
Sure.
Financially, it's just, you know, it's a lot. And I often keep thinking, it is really just for me. It's just something that I want to have and to hold and to say that I did it. And so if it takes 8 years or 10, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. And just really quickly, I didn't get mine until I was in my 50s. And my mother was 72 when she got hers. So,
Oh my gosh. Okay, well then
so there's
I'm on
hope for
track.
all of us.
I'm on track with your mom.
There you go. Hopefully before that. So the first question I usually ask my guests, Kellie, is if I say the word belonging or feeling a sense of belonging, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
You know, I knew that this obviously was going to be the question because I do follow your podcast, and listening to others, I, it seemed like an easy question until it's, belonging. But
Sure.
when I had to take time to think about that word, I realized, wow, that's a really complicated question. It's much harder to answer than I thought it would be because it just is so moving for every person. It's different. It means something differently for each person. So as easy as I thought that was going to be, it's really actually a difficult question. When I think about belonging, I think about how important that actually means to someone and how important it is for their well-being, for their mental health, for who they are, to feel that you belong to something. It really is that sense of feeling like you fit somewhere. And not only do you just fit, you actually feel safe, loved, and it's your place. That's really kind of hard to feel sometimes, I would say. And when
Yeah.
I thought back about where I have belonged in my life, I've been really, really fortunate. Um, I come from a really strong, loving family. That no matter what our choices have been over, and I mean my siblings too, no
Sure.
matter what our choices have ever been, my parents have always made us feel like we belonged in this family. It was an unconditional feeling of belonging in our family. And I think I've always taken that for granted, that everybody got it. Didn't everybody feel like that in their family? And as you get older, you realize, no, not everybody has been gifted that. And so for me, I've always been gifted by a really, really strong family. And I have been since been able to give that to my children and to our family, and that no matter where they're at, they belong here. This is their place. And then outside of your family, it's much harder to feel that sense of belonging in different groups. I think about young children today and where do they fit and how hard they work to feel that sense of belonging someplace. Whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, and beyond, you want to feel like you belong someplace outside of your family. Um, and so when I think of belonging, I think about the responsibility I actually have for my students, and that I need and want and just really worked so hard to make sure that these kids in my care, I teach elementary, so I get them all year long in our classroom, and the moment they walk into that room, I want them to feel at home. They are home. I've waited for them since kindergarten in this building, or if they just came this year. I still have been preparing a place for them to belong. And so creating that sense of um, the respect that this is their place and that I'm the facilitator, or I'm the one that's going to make sure that that happens for them. I want them to know that they do have a place here. And that's just one step for them to feel that they belong in something. I think we work really, really hard to feel like we're a circle in a circle or a square in the square, and not, trying to feel like you're the square peg that fits in the circle.
Right.
Um, I think schools in the culture in a building is really, really critical for teachers to feel that they belong in that space, that building, that we're connected, we work together, and every teacher in that building has such a critical place for them in that building. Their work is our work, that we are in it together. And so when one person does something, how important it is to celebrate that, their work, not necessarily the person itself, but the work, and their kids are benefiting from it, and how important it is to feel that, wow, when one shines, we're all shining. When one is shining, all of those students in that room are shining. That's that sense of belonging where you go. I must say though, I had absolutely no idea the power of Twitter until I stepped into Twitter. Maybe, I think it might have been 2 years ago. I'm not even sure how long I've been on Twitter, but it's been a short time.
Yeah.
But my family on Twitter really, really helped me understand that word, belonging, that sense of just like, I haven't even met these people. Honestly, when I say my family on Twitter, I haven't met them in person, Eileen.
I know,
haven't.
isn't that amazing? But it feels like you have.
I
Yeah.
know. Yes, it's like the power of technology and how
Yeah.
you can connect and how you find your place where you belong. I
Right.
really understand what it meant to belong to something bigger than myself, bigger than my day-to-day job, really. Just that
Right.
sense of like, I belonged with this group of people, or that sense of family. Like when I, say your name, it's like, oh my gosh, you say family, so yeah, I think
Yeah.
belonging doesn't mean that you belong to something in person or into a group that you have to physically be around. That sense of belonging actually is a feeling that you get when you find your family and you find that safe, loving space. And I'm just so grateful that I got that just being on Twitter. I giggle at that sentence because it just seems so, it's such a, it's just a wild sentence that you found your home on Twitter, but it's not Twitter, but it's the people that I have met. And
Absolutely.
I have really, really felt the place that I belong.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have mentioned even in presentations about, getting active and growing your PLN on Twitter, that it's my lifeline, because I'm so far from everybody that, I've sort of lived virtually for a while. And so, this isn't new to me, but it really does make a difference. But I have so many takeaways from what you just said, Kellie. You started with the whole idea of your family and your experiences with your family, and what you're now doing for your own family, your own children, and that unconditional love. But taking that model and saying, there might be children out there who don't feel that sense of belonging, and even if they feel they do, they need to feel that sense of belonging in their classroom, in their school. And then you extended it to the teachers, which is just so awesome, because that idea of professional belonging, that idea of collaboration, collegiality, celebrating successes, not celebrating necessarily the people, but celebrating the successes, all of that matters so much. And all of it has that connection that we need to each other. And then taking it out to your experience on social media, on Twitter, which is really, really awesome. And I think it's the opening up our eyes and seeing the opportunities, which is really, really incredible. And I hope, I know there isn't all, it isn't all light and rainbows, but it's so wonderful if we really do open up our eyes and we look for those opportunities to find people, whether it's face to face or virtually or on social media, to be able to have those connections. So that was just really, really awesome. It is hard. It is a hard question to answer, but you did a fantastic job. Like I said, I had so many takeaways. Yeah.
Thanks. And I was just thinking too, when you were talking about it too, I often, I think one of the things that I learned about belonging is that it's a two-way street. Like
Yes.
you really have, when you're young, and I have young children, and I see the struggle that they have when they want to belong to something, and they fight so hard to fit in someplace where, as they grow older, they're going to realize that you're not fitting there because you don't really belong there, because you're something so much bigger for you. But when you're young, you don't see that. You just want to feel like you belong into the group. And choices that have been made just to feel that you belong, I really have come to understand the importance of helping children understand their value, um, who they are, and to love themselves unconditionally first. When you love who you are, then you make really good choices to find people that also honor and support and love that of you. It's you, and until I really truly believe, until you find that and who you are, you're always going to feel like you don't fit into something. Then you're that square in the circle, or you're always trying to push yourself someplace where you're not really connected, because it's not you. So I really do help children find that space for themselves first.
Right.
And so that they know that, what, maybe in 5th grade, which I teach, you might not find your fit 100%.
Yeah.
But staying true to yourself, you're going to find your fit. You're going to find where you belong. But when you get into that relationship of feeling like you belong, it really means you give back. It really means you honor and you support and you love those also in that family that you are creating where you belong. It's not just take. It's a give. It's a strong relationship.
It is really, yes. I've had some of my guests talk about that, and I had never thought of it that way, but it is a two-way street. We give as much as we get from this whole idea of finding that sense of belonging. And everything that you said is definitely backed up by the research. Brene Brown talks about that, belonging isn't fitting in. Belonging is being your true self and being accepted for that true self. But I love the way you talked about the fact that at 5th grade, that's very hard for them to understand, because often if they're sort of an outlier, they feel they need to fit in, and they don't find others that seem like they think like them or act like them or whatever. And so they tend to fit in thinking that that's the way, and then they're completely unhappy. To the point sometimes of being unhappy and mentally unhealthy. So the fact that you're a champion for them no matter what, and make them understand that, is really fantastic.
And it's funny because the kids that I often see that don't belong are actually so much bigger than 5th grade. Like their thought processes, who they are so much bigger. And so I will say that sentence to them, where I feel like, I have a couple, I have a couple every year, but this year in particular, it's been hard because we've been online and, face to face, back online. And knowing how, just even the stress right now of that inconsistency, or I do better in person, and then there's others that do better online. So there's always just a small pocket of trying to see, how can I help them? But I do have a couple of students even now who I have sensed that aren't feeling 100% that they belong. And of course that breaks my heart as their teacher. But I will say to them, you're bigger. You have gifts that don't fit in the 5th grade right now. Your gifts are so much bigger, and that you need to love those gifts. You need to love who you are because it's so much bigger, and connecting them to something outside of our classroom, like sending them. I have a student right now. She's just in NASA. Oh my goodness, she just loves NASA, and that doesn't necessarily fit into the fifth grade. But connecting her to the NASA challenges that they have offered and writing essays or connecting them to naming the next rover or, and then they feel like, wow, they're connected to something outside our classroom. They belong to this group right now of NASA. And it's just finding these little pockets for kids right now so that they do feel like they belong someplace or allowing them to understand that fifth grade isn't the end all, honey.
True.
It's just
yes, it seems like it when you're in fifth grade, but they need to know that.
Yeah, when you're in the fifth grade, you feel like, oh my gosh, this is all I did, or you go to middle school and it's like, honey, I just need to let you know, the middle school ages aren't for everybody. Your life may begin when you hit high school. And helping them to see that, because I remember as a kid just wanting to belong, as fit in, and and oftentimes, for me to fit in meant that, I needed to let my grades slack a bit, like making sure I was invited to the, high school parties or whatever it might have been, and letting my grades slack just so I could fit in. And then now realizing as an adult, as much as that was important to be with my friends, was it really where I belonged? Probably not.
Yeah.
I wish I had a teacher that had said, listen, you are so much bigger than this right now. And it's gonna hang tough, girl. I wish somebody would have said that to me, but I took a bunch of bumps and bruises along the way. I think I finally have I've taken these life lessons and hopefully helping others.
Yeah, that's true. But we do look back and we say, wouldn't it have been nice, like you said, for somebody to have noticed my strengths, to have gotten to know me so well that they knew the things that I loved, I was passionate about. And how often really did that happen? But honestly, if we don't know our students well enough, well, for so many different reasons, but especially for giving them that sense of safety where they can feel different, but feel good about themselves and understand their strengths, which at any age, if somebody doesn't come and point that out to you, if you're feeling like the outlier, it's very difficult for you to understand. And that now I understand, in fact, my next question, but I don't think I need you to answer it anymore, but let's see, was I saw that your pinned tweet on Twitter is, if a student leaves my classroom with new skills, I have done my job. If a child leaves my classroom knowing they are loved and accepted for who they are, I've reached my goal. And so I think you've already answered that question. Is there anything else you wanted to comment on that, about why you posted it as your pinned tweet?
I think the moment that I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, somebody just spoke my heart. Somebody spoke my heart. Somebody spoke what I live for on a daily basis. I am a very rigorous teacher. I want all to know that I have high expectations for every child that walks into my classroom. And not because I want to push them over the edge, just because I trust and believe in that they can do hard things. I know they can. It doesn't matter who you are. The moment you walk into that classroom, I know you can do hard things. And everyone's hard thing is so different. What's hard for one is not, it's easy for someone else, and vice versa. But until I see them, they won't be able to do hard things. And having a child feel seen is not as easy as it sounds. You just can't see a child. It's them knowing you see them. That's the hard part. I'll see them, absolutely. But for them to know that I see them and honor them and accept them for who they are, and that their place is in our classroom, you belong, you matter every day. When you're not there, our class is not complete. I want them to know that. And they have to be absent for whatever reason. I want them to be wherever they are, knowing okay, the class is not as perfect today because I'm not there. And that's true.
That's so
They have a
awesome.
place. They have a place here, and they
Yeah.
fill a space. And I want them to know that I see them. And that means that I do build a really, really strong relationship outside of education. I need to know your family. And that
Yeah.
means that means I don't pry them about their family. It means
Mm-hmm.
now that I connect with their family. I want
Yeah.
to know, I'll connect with your parents. I need to know where your parents are. How can I support them? I come from an amazing district, and in my building alone, my families are very supportive, and I'm lucky. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't begin to tell you how lucky I am for the parents that I have in my classroom and how much they support me as a
Mm-hmm.
teacher. And I want them to know I honor them and I support them too. And if when it gets hard, I'm here. You don't have to do the hard things because that's what
Yeah.
I want to do for you.
Right.
And I want you to know that I care enough about your child to know
Mm-hmm.
that when they're struggling, I'm their support. I
Mm-hmm.
will know and I will be able to change things to help make them know they're not alone. I may back things up and I may push things. Some kids are flying, and if I'm not giving them enough, they sit idle. That means that I'm not seeing them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to see every child for who they are. And that means I push some way up and
Mm-hmm.
others I'm holding a net underneath them and walking around them, making sure that they know that I'm there. So it's just very much about building a relationship. It's asking them about their pets. You know, we had a cooking show. Oh my goodness, it was the cutest thing, Eileen. Oh my heavens. We had
Oh, that's so fun.
an online cooking show.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was cute because they're the ones that suggested it because I made a comment, you know, on online learning that, you know, hey, you know, if I didn't realize that I could do this so well. Maybe I really have always wanted to have my own baking show.
Oh,
And I said,
that's so funny.
are you a good
Yeah.
baker? And I was like, honey, no, not at all. I don't know how to bake at all, but I just want to be on a baking show. And so I said, you know, I always keep my eye open for somebody that wants to have a baking show and they invite me on it. And so one of the students said, I'm having a baking show and I'd like to invite you on it. And I said, can we have everybody? And he was like, I was just kidding, but yeah, that would be fun. And
Oh,
so we did a holiday baking show,
oh
and
wow.
my husband was in the room, you know, over, and when we got done with the show, he said, I cannot believe that you knew every other sibling's name. I can't believe you knew their pet names. And I was like,
Wow.
but of course I know Spanx, and of course I know Maui. And so he was like, how? And I was like, I don't know. We just talk about stuff all the time outside of
Yeah.
learning. And
Yeah.
I feel like that really helps a child know that I care about
Of
them
course.
outside of their learning. And when they're
Yes.
not
Yeah.
doing well, trust me, I'm going to ask about it, and we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Everybody in my classroom has their own IEP, their own personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the whole thing is they want not to please you, but they buy into the fact that even if you're a little bit harder or tougher on them, it's for a reason because you've gained their trust. And so they'll work that much harder. So if you catch them not quite doing as well as they should be, they already know that you've caught on, right? Because you know them
I'm
so
already
well.
well aware. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm well
yeah.
aware. And it's funny too, because, you know, it's like, I know them so well that when they take a test, and trust me, I'm not test driven at all. It's just obviously like the United States
Sure.
educational.
Yeah.
If I could, I'd never give one. I would always just
Mhm.
have projects and be able to build portfolios of their work so that they can
Yeah.
see their own goals and their own progress.
Mm-hmm.
And I do those things outside of test taking. So we do have our own portfolios, and I want them to know their goals and are they meeting them. You know, I had a student just the other day that did not do well on a math test, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't accept it. I knew that something was off. I knew that
Yeah.
it was a bad day. I knew that this wasn't, what he would have expected of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't necessary, when I did create it and I looked at it, it was just a very sweet kind of just, hey, tell me what happened.
Yeah.
And just, just that little question, tears come flying down out of his eyes, he was just so upset. I don't know, I just forgot everything. And I thought, you know what? Hey, we all have days like that. And
Absolutely.
I've
Yes.
had
We're
times where my
human.
mind just shut completely off and I couldn't even say my name. So I said, you know what? And I just ripped it up. Just ripped the test and said, hey, when you're ready, let me know. You can retake it anytime that you feel
Yeah.
comfortable. And he said, thank you. And I said, talk with your parents. I said, I do want to reach out to mom, just to give her a heads up if, after you talk.
Yeah, because you might find something out, about the reason why also.
I needed to make sure that communication with mom was always front and center
Mm-hmm.
too, because I don't want something like that ever slipping past, something might be happening that, they're not aware of. And
Yeah.
so, it was a great conversation. Mom and I met for about an hour. And, the plan is that when he's ready, we'll take the test again. You know what? He's having a hard, we're
Yeah.
all having
Yeah.
the struggle of just getting through
Yeah.
it. So I think
Yeah.
those are some things that I have to say that really, really are important to kids right now. So if there are educators out there, you know what? Don't let those test scores just rule it. Just be
Yeah.
very flexible and understanding that kids are struggling right now. They are. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
They're just becoming numb to the system. And that's just very sad when education, even in this day right now, today, can be fun and exciting and engaging. And you can do those things.
Yeah, and we know it can be done. And so, I talk a little bit. Of course, I'm outside the system, both U.S. West and also, in terms of being retired. But it would be nice. Sometimes I'll hear teachers talk about the fact that they're being pushed to give these tests, to do these assessments, and so forth. And it's like they know what is better for their students, which is the social emotional, the making sure that they're okay, because they can't take these tests. Like this poor student of yours, whatever was going on, he was just not ready for it, right? And so, but you already knew that he was going to do better on it. So to try to resist, pushing for those things, but within the boundaries of what we're allowed to too, because
Yeah.
obviously,
And that's
you're
the
being
thing.
assessed as a teacher too. So, you have to sort of run that fine line. But it would be lovely if we could sort of overturn that feeling somehow within the system and come to
And
terms
there's
with
some like
it.
there's for teachers, there are many
Yeah.
opportunities for us to control those in classroom assessments.
Right.
Now, however, we are also mandated to give standardized testing, and there is no changing that. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it just has too much weight and pressure. And it would be, I think there's a bajillion educators out there that would love to get rid of, standardized testing. I am not in
Yeah, we
this
hear them.
to
We
say
hear
that.
them or read them on the internet all the time. Yeah.
Right. Nobody likes them. And so, yeah, there are things that we can say, but they just don't paint the whole picture. And that's why I think portfolios are a really great way to show students and families who they are. They have more control to learn their own goals and their strength. They're not just learning to a test.
Yeah.
They're building their passions and they're building these skills that they will carry forever. I think that's going to be a lifetime movement, and I really hope that it continues. But standardized testing just cannot paint the whole picture of a child.
No, and we're aware of that. So hopefully we'll get to that point, like you said.
Mhm.
Kellie, you also mentioned, and as I read your bio, you talk about being a culturally responsive teacher. We hear and see that mentioned a lot these days, but I'm not sure we understand what it means in practical terms in the classroom. So, what does that mean to you? What are the kinds of things that you do in your classroom to make sure you're that culturally responsive teacher?
Well, I think the number one thing is that children, there's twofold. One, obviously, a child will learn more, be more engaged in learning, having more passion for learning when they see themselves in the curriculum,
Sure.
um, and using materials so that they do see themselves. I think that's number one. Um, and then also the flip side to that too is that being able to expose children to those that don't look like them or aren't
Mhm.
like them or having different cultures, and in immersing your classroom in a celebration of the world, and not just learning about it but celebrating, wow, it is so amazing and so cool to be different from one another.
Mhm.
That is the like, you can you believe the world. So opening up those walls to say, wow, this
Yes.
is, this is pretty cool that we don't have to be all the same. And not every single person on the face of the earth have, should have equal rights,
Yes.
should have, everything should be given to them equally.
Mhm.
And then being able to see those differences so that empathy comes in and that we
Right.
feel like, wow, we have all of this but others do not, or
Mhm.
four people in the, in the world have more income than 48 countries. Having kids kind of feel and see those things really opens your eyes to say, wow, this world is so much bigger than this classroom. It's so much bigger than our school.
Yes.
It's so much bigger than where we live. And
Mhm.
that, you have a place here,
Yep.
you have a place on this earth, but so does everybody else.
Mhm.
And then learning and celebrating who they are. So just kind of like always having this vision of, um, that basically that we all are here for a reason, and honoring everybody's part in this. And then also seeing that there's root causes for things of why that's not equal. And
Mhm.
so really helping kids to see the importance of using our voice, and sharing what they're learning so that others can
Yeah.
see it too. So really it's just painting this world of, like, in my classroom, and making sure that they see themselves first and that they see others as well.
I love that. I love that. And so, as part of that, I see you've started using the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, to help your students see the rest of the world. So, tell us a little bit about how you got started with that, and what are you doing, if you're doing anything with that this year?
Great questions, because I'm going to have to give a shout back out to basically my Twitter family, right? And being a part of seeing things on Twitter, and asking questions. And then
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, what, there's so many people on Twitter that want to help. I
Yeah.
mean, it is just, they really, really want to help. They really want
Yes.
to help others grow. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I didn't even know what an SDG, Sustainable Development Goal of the UN, the 17 by 2030, and helping and to make sure that the world is just repaired itself.
Right.
It's a huge undertaking. And again, my students know that it takes every human being on the planet to make this happen, and they have a part in this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their voices, their actions, they're changing the way that they see things or think. I think that's really, really big. I started with the SDGs. I had befriended a few, like Julia Fliss and Donna Gurin, and then I connected to the women of SDGs. It's just, the small chat that I kind of got involved in, and then I met Jennifer Williams, Dr. Jennifer Williams. And my first experience really was the Goals Project of 2019, which was last year's project. And I was just like a newbie. I didn't even really know where to go, what to do. And it was just like one step after another, just try something. And then I started, and then actually what really kind of like supported the SDGs in my classroom in making this work was reading Lindsay Portnoy's Design to Learn book. And her book, along with trying to give kids a voice, a choice, designing something and trying it out and trying something new, and the communications and how the 6 C's of life basically fell into place, learning about her book and having the kids and me sitting back going, okay, get in the back of the room and just say yes, Kelly. Okay. Yeah, just say yes.
Give up some of that control. Yeah.
I let go of like the reins. I put them all in driver's seats, and it was messy. And it was like, wow, I'm not sure. Okay, yes. How can I support you? We'd like to, we'd really like to connect with the school outside of ours. Okay, great. Who do you know? What do we want to do? And then it just kind of snowballed into this beautiful, beautiful project last year of, we had goal 8, economic equality, and we ended up really looking outside of where we live. And one of the most empowering things that they learned was that we exchanged our monthly income. So they had to go home and kind of find out, like, hey, mom and dad, what do we live off on a month? And they came back with their own little kind of like little number on a piece of scratch paper. Okay. So they kind of held it. And then we got onto, was a Gap Street, which was was like connecting to another family that lived on like $12 a month. And they exchanged these roles. So we kind of visually said, you're coming to live in your place, and now you get to go live there. So what do you do every day for work? And they're like, I think I have a goat. And I'm like, okay. And then they didn't have a bathroom anymore. And then they didn't have,
How awesome is that?
I kind of started to go, wow, not everybody's living the same. And so not only, it wasn't to feel sorry. We wanted to change this whole, like, we're not here to feel sympathy and you're out to save people. It's to be empathetic and to know that you can put your feet in their shoes, and how now that root cause, what do we offer to change things? And a lot of it was just, what we need to let other people know about this. And so they kind of were just like, they needed others to feel or see these things. And they invited other people into our classroom to experience it. And then they connected with another school and they made SDG bracelets that look like the SDG colors.
Oh, wonderful.
It's so cute. And, we started out with plastic beads, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm like, that's so bad for the environment.
So many teachable moments. Wow.
So many. It just kept snowballing. And that's because I literally just sat back and said, let these kids just come up with ideas. So yes, I am involved in that. We are now, we were blessed with goal 10 this year, which is, the, equality, a world equality. And so now we get to like kind of look outside and go, not every country is allowed the same. And we're looking at just technology in itself right now, and how technology in one country keeps moving them forward at a really fast pace. But what happens when another country doesn't have that?
Right.
They're standing there and they don't have, like, what's the root cause and how do you fix those things? Like, we're really thinking big, and I think it's just to get kids to think outside themselves. And oftentimes people will say, how do I get started? Even kindergarten teachers will say, is it just for big kids? And I really want to say it's not. It's literally the moment that a child can step outside themselves,
Mm-hmm.
stop thinking about just themselves and think
Right.
about somebody else, then you already have entered into the world of SDGs.
Absolutely. Yes.
Their
Yeah.
bake sales or food drives are great for young kids. I
Mm-hmm.
do want to say, when you get to the older kids, I think
Yeah.
it's important to know that food drives doesn't fix hunger. As a matter of fact, there isn't even a shortage of food around the world. We have food.
Yeah, it's a
It's
distribution of the food, but they don't know that.
distribution
Yeah.
or income. And how did they
Mm-hmm.
get there in the first place? Like, building
Yeah.
deeper questions as they get older to know that
Yeah. Yeah.
something bigger than just doing food drives to take care of a small pocket of people.
Yeah.
We want to cure hunger. So
Yeah.
thinking of bigger questions about the root causes is really important as they get older, of course. But
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love the
everybody,
fact that you look for the root causes with them. And so, what really is causing this, and let's look at solving that rather
right.
than let's just try to, throw something at it that will solve it and make us feel better. But if we go back to it 6 months from now, they'll still be in the same place they were when we originally studied about them.
Exactly. We talk a lot about band-aids versus solutions. And
Mhm.
are we creating a band-aid for something, or are we creating solutions?
I
And
like that.
so I
Yeah.
love the work also of Zoe Wheel. And goodness, I hope I didn't say her last name incorrectly. And creating solutionaries. And I just
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
love, like, we are creating solutionaries, and I do call them solutionaries in my
Hmm.
classroom, that you're,
Nice.
you're here to find deep solutions to these problems.
Hmm.
And sometimes we might be at an age where we can't necessarily do all of those things, but
Right.
using our voice and even bringing awareness can be a solution to
Yeah.
a part of the solution. So yeah, anyway, so I'm very, very passionate about all of those things, and project-based learning and helping kids see themselves outside their selves and outside their own, you know, even small little pocket, you know.
Yeah. And what you're doing also at this point is you're planting a seed for them to be able to continue thinking about this for later on. So you're not looking at it, well, that's a little too big for this age or this stage. No, it's okay that we can only get to this point now, but if it sparked a sort of a, if it lit a spark, then obviously they'll be looking for solutions and they'll be aware of the fact that there are needs for those solutions. That's wonderful.
And I
Kelly,
think also
yeah,
too,
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that it also just helps kids in their day-to-day life to see the inequalities that are around them
Yes.
too, on every level, even on their
Yes.
outside,
Mm-hmm.
life. They can,
Yeah.
when you see outside yourself and it becomes a habit to look outside yourself, and then you start to realize, wow, that just isn't fair. Not, and I always tell my kids, I want you to always be proud of who you are. I want you to be proud of the things that you have. I want you to be proud of how hard your parents work. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to just love, adore, and be proud of who you are, but also knowing that we may be in a position to be the helpers, to be the solutionaries,
Yeah.
to be the voice now, because we are given these things. We
Mm-hmm.
have to use those things. And it's not just writing checks to people, it's about thinking about changing systems. We have a huge sign in my classroom that says change the rules, because until rules are changed, we can't make a difference. If we
True.
can't, it's just band-aids then, until we can
Right.
be really, really changing rules. What rules are not working anymore, and how
Yeah.
do we change the rules to make them? So we have a giant sign that says change the rules.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's really incredible. Kelly, I wanted to ask you about your upcoming book because I guess it's going to be out in March.
It is. Yes, yes. A
Yes.
huge
So tell
shout
me
out
about it.
to,
What's the title
yeah.
of it and what's the premise of it? Tell me as much as you can about it.
Bill, yes. Okay, well, the title goes back and forth all the time. So it's probably going to be the very, very last thing that I settle on. I
Okay.
do know that it's a little school in the woods. I'm a huge naturist. I love being outside. I love, I'm,
Ah,
born and raised here in Michigan.
uh-huh.
I'm from northern Michigan, which is very woodsy, lakes,
Yes.
streams, a lot of outdoor
Beautiful.
activities.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Oh my goodness, just beautiful, beautiful place. And
Yes.
um, I it's a book created to help kids know that they are perfect. Basically, you're perfect. The first book, though, is based on my son. His name is Landon, and he has ADD, ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
and the this teacher in the book, Miss Hawk, is actually based on a teacher that he had when he was in the third grade, also, and
Okay.
how she really, really helped him understand how perfect he was, and that he wasn't made for the classroom seat, and that was okay, and that he had superpowers. And then I kind of like, as I have become a teacher and I want my students to understand the same values about themselves, and
Yeah.
that kids with ADD, ADHD really truly aren't seen the way that they need to be seen.
Yeah. It's
They,
unfortunate.
it's so sad. It's
Yeah.
so just unfortunate that that happens
Mm-hmm.
to these children. And if we as educators can see them differently, if we could
Mm-hmm.
see them as human beings that were created for something so much bigger than our classroom, so much bigger than their classroom seat. And that
Yeah.
our job is to empower them to use their superhero gifts. And
Nice.
so Landon finds his superpower gifts within this classroom, and
Oh.
he starts to see himself differently. And
Mm-hmm.
that his too often kids with ADHD are really, really one of the most detrimental things that happen to them is that they lose their self-esteem, that they lose
Yeah.
their self-worth, and that they feel broken. And
Yeah.
so the book is really to paint the picture on how incredibly talented, wonderful, and just
Yeah.
amazing children with ADHD, that they honestly, I believe, Eileen, will be the world changers. They're the
Mm.
solutionaries. They're the ones with the big ideas that we need. Yes, do they need strategies to be successful? We all do.
No, of
So,
course.
yeah, we all need strategies. I need them. So along the way, he also is very reflective on the strategies that he needs to help support him so he can be successful
I
in this life.
love that.
Yeah, and it's a book about, it's in the woods, and I chose animals so that all kids could connect to themselves a little more easily to the book. If it's, a
Right.
boy character, then only boys would see themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
if it were a girl, the same thing. So I chose woods animals, and
Oh,
I'm
how fun. I can't wait to
excited. Yeah,
see it.
yeah, I'm really excited. The next book I started to write, it's the bully in the classroom and his
Mm-hmm.
backstory. It's his story about why
Oh,
he is
wow.
who he is. And having Miss Hawks again will support him and help him see things a little differently as well. So it's
Yeah.
really empowering kids who they are. And also, really honestly, I think more importantly, I'm hoping teachers read it so that they can change some of their practices, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can see kids so much differently than what we
Yeah.
are right now. The last thing a child with ADHD needs is to be kept from recess, and I hear it all the time.
Oh,
That's,
gosh. Yes. Oh,
yeah, why are you keeping them
it's
from
so
recess? It's the one thing that
terrible.
will actually help.
Yes.
So, yeah, stop punishing kids that, weren't made
Yes.
for the seat, and then start empowering them and finding ways to support them in the
Yes.
classroom.
Look
So,
past those behaviors or look into those behaviors, not even past the behaviors, but look into the behaviors. Why is that happening? I had
right, again,
students who
we go back.
were Yeah, who are not diagnosed ADD or ADHD, but I knew very well that every 15 minutes or half an hour, if they didn't get a chance to just go out the hallway and go around the window, sort of vestibule or whatever in the school, and then come back within just a couple of minutes, I was losing them. That was it. Or if they were fidgeting inside their desk, but I'd ask them a question, they knew very well what the answer was. So I stopped saying, stop fidgeting inside your desk, right?
Yeah,
Because
I actually
that's
hand
what
out
they needed to
fidgets.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, do you need this? I have a whole bucket full of fidgets. Like, do you need that?
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
play with that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it really just, it goes back to, as an educator, trying to find the root cause. Like
Mm-hmm.
finding the reason behind these things. They
Right.
always say like 80% of, low academics really actually has to do with, well, 80% of behaviors happens to be because they have low academic abilities. And so again,
It's a
don't
vicious cycle.
behaviors.
Yeah.
Find the reason what's behind those behaviors so that they can feel better about themselves. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited. It's one of those things that I never thought would happen as far as being an author or writing a book. I really, truly did not know that that was going to happen. I do
Mm-hmm.
want to give a shout out to Brian Aspinall, Code Breakers,
Yeah.
and just the fact that, he reached out and said, what do you think? Would you want to write a book? And it was like the first time I was like, what? Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a book in my head right now. And so, his belief in me just really, really just, he
Yeah.
does it for so many people, though. He really is just a real cool
Yeah, there
guy.
are people in this world, educators in this world who know when to tap others on the shoulder. They see those strengths, they see those gifts.
Yes.
And just like we do for our students, we have others, colleagues and others who, and that's so wonderful. Yeah, Brian and Alice are really, really amazing.
Yes.
So yeah, I've known about them for a while, but I've just sort of started looking at the whole code breaker community, and it's
Oh,
quite an amazing group. So
yes,
yeah.
and it's just funny how he just, like you said, he taps people on the shoulders. He really is just about amplifying others
Mm-hmm.
too. Like
Yeah.
he really has a huge, huge selfless heart when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to supporting other people.
Yeah.
He's just really, really a cool guy. So I'm really
Yeah.
lucky that I, met him again on Twitter.
Yes, I know, right? Yeah. So Kelly, we're kind of coming down to the end, which I'm really sad about. But is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to talk about, or any other advice? You've given an awful lot of advice already, but to our listeners. But is there anything else that you wanted to share before we finish up?
Gosh, that's I think I probably have covered it all. I would love to say to all educators out there right now, I know that you keep hearing this again and again about self-care. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's everywhere. But I really hope that you're taking time to take care of your mental health during this time
Yeah.
when you can't take care of others until you really, really are taking care of yourself
Yeah.
too. You can't operate on an empty cup. And so finding anything that might fill that cup up. I'm always available on Twitter if anybody can DM or whatever. I'm here to support and help. And I'm very grateful for those that I, reach out to fill my cup. So I'm very lucky about that too. But we are in this together, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, great advice, very important advice, especially right now, but always. Teachers, educators tend to leave themselves last, and they end up getting burned out, or just their mental health suffers. So that's wonderful advice. Kelly, what are the best places to find you? I know you've mentioned social media, but just so people, I'll definitely put it in the show notes, but just in case anybody's listening right now wants to hop off and find you right away, where do they go to?
Oh, perfect. Well, honestly, for like Twitter would be the number one place. So I'm at KBAHRI 5. I am also on Instagram as well. And that actually is a little different. It's KBAHRI 6 because it's a bit more for my family. You may see family pictures and photos. Twitter is really just about my teaching, my passions, and Instagram is 6 because there's 6 in my family. Four
Nice.
children and my husband and I. So that's number 6 for my family, but 5 because it's 5th grade. So
There you go. I love the fact that you chose it for its significance. Kellie, again, thank you so much. I have so much to take away from this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will also. It's been my pleasure, and I'm so delighted that you made time to be on my podcast today.
oh, thank you so much, Eileen. You have no idea what an honor it was to be here and to chat. And I had so many questions I wanted to ask about you too. So I'm hoping we can continue the conversation later.
Absolutely. That would be wonderful from my side. Take care.
Thank you.